Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to day number 5 of the Eñye Accelerator Table Makers Club interview series. I have a very special guest here with me today. Her name is Arlyne Marella. That's how I pronounce your name, right? The last
Yep.
name. Awesome.
Perfect.
You never know with these names, and I want to always make sure I get them right. And yours is not complicated. I just want to make sure. So thanks so much for joining us, everyone. And for everyone who has joined us all week, I have had an absolute blast doing these interviews and featuring some of my favorite human beings on the planet, humans I would never have met had I not gone for my dream, which is kind of meta because we're talking now about these amazing women's dreams who are inspired by my going after mine, right? So it's like the coolest thing in the world for me. And sometimes people say, like, how do you have the energy for this, Denise? Like, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, look at what I do. Like, it is the most energizing thing to be able to support other amazing women and to create these incredible pieces of content. So Arlyne Marella came to me as a result of an introduction. She and I both know somebody pretty extraordinary that used to work at LinkedIn. His name is Eñye Verduzco.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he had reached out. So I have actually lost track now. It's funny. I have not been keeping track of our virtual events, which I actually should. I need to go back and do that. But I've done over 100 live events. The last, I feel like I was either at 108 or 112 the last time before this year started. And so that's about 30 to 40 a year for 3 years. And the LinkedIn event that I did for Eñye was event number 44. And, you know, there's some events that I just remember the number, and that one was number 44. And that was an event that created a domino effect in the Silicon Valley. And it was all due to this single person saying, Denise, you should come to this event. I will pack the house. He had drinks, wine, beer, food, and an amazing playlist. It was a party, and it went on and on and on. And it was one of the most favorite places I got kicked out of because we got kicked out of the room. Then we got kicked out of the lobby, and then everybody went to a bar, and it just didn't stop. And so Eñye introduced, then Arlyne, did Eñye reach out to me and introduce? No, you reached out to me. So then you can tell your story in a second. You reached out to me and told me that Eñye told you about me. And immediately, it's funny, there's just some people, it's like, oh my gosh, I love Eñye. If Eñye told her that she needs to talk to me, then instantly I like her, right? Like, that's like instant, right? So we end up talking, and like so many women in the Eñye Accelerator, I feel like I was talking to a long lost family member, and I felt this instant connection. And there's some people in EDA and some people that I've met through the project where I love talking to them, and then I'm also equally frustrated at the miles between us because I just want to come over and have this conversation in person and let it go for the 3 hours it should go, instead of cutting it off, right? And I always feel the same when I'm talking to Arlyne, and you're going to feel the same way too today. So we end up meeting and talking, and you could share your version, but what happened was she shared with me this big idea that she had to start a podcast. Oh, no. Then I started following her. I'm messing up the story. I just knew I wanted to support her. She is one of those types of people where you just can't keep your eye off her. That she's got this X factor. It's that thing that you cannot put into words. We began following each other on Instagram, and I'm like, who is this girl? What the hell is she doing? Then we started talking, and I see a post about a podcast idea or something. Somehow I found out she wanted something more. And I wanted to be the person to support her to get there. I just knew I could be that for her. And then she joins EDA. And not only did a great coaching relationship begin, but also a friendship as well. And so, Arlyne, thanks so much for joining us. Your podcast is called Recipes for Realness. And one of the things I was so surprised about was you were like ready with your name, ready with the subtitle, ready with all the stuff. It's like, some people are like, well, I have this idea. And then it's like months later, they're like still noodling. And you're like, well, I have this idea. And then like, boom, 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 boom. All these other things are put in place. And so it almost felt like Just Add Water to me. Although I know there was a jump in confidence, in overcoming some self-doubt. But it was like from my side of the fence, I'm just like, girl, this isn't Just Add Water. This is like ready to go, right? All you have to do is jump in, as far as I can tell. So she's interviewed me for her podcast, and we will link to that below because that's actually one of my favorite podcast conversations of all time. And I want you all to get to know her even better there and become a follower of her podcast. So, all right, Arlyne, take it away. You could now take over and share your version of this.
No, of course. No, I mean, it's really cool to hear it from your side too, because in my mind, when you reached out to me, that was even before I was in Eñye Dream Accelerator. That was a moment where I realized that more people were watching than I thought were. And I think in my career, in kind of the corporate space, so I work a regular job, full-time, more than full-time, sometimes it feels like, currently at LinkedIn. But I also had this passion for wanting to share my journey and my story and things I had been through. I think where the self-doubt came in was just like, I don't have quote unquote qualifications that make me an expert in something or a fancy degree. But one of the things I had said to Denise was like, I have a PhD in struggle, and I could talk about that forever. So I knew that all of these struggle moments I wanted to bring up. So yeah, Ish and I went through a development program together at LinkedIn that's for Black and Latino employees. And during that program, one of the things I had kind of brought up was some cultural discomfort in that, like, I'm Mexican, I'm full Mexican, I'm first generation, and I don't speak Spanish. And so I was like, I'm in this program that's for Latinos and for the Black community, and I don't feel Latino enough. And he pops up at lunch and goes, you have to watch this documentary called Being Eñye. And I'm like, what? And so he tells me there's an event that's coming up, all this stuff's going on. I'm like, okay. So I sat in a different office. So I didn't get to go to that event, but to this day, Denise, people still talk about it. And whenever I bring your name up, and I tell people, because I will tell people like, yeah, I'm in this coaching program, and they're like, oh my gosh, is that from the event? And I'm like, yeah, same thing. So it's really cool, even though it's been, I think, like 4 years.
It's been a minute.
So,
yeah.
So I watched the documentary. I like felt it in my soul, and then I started following you on Instagram, and I would just as an admirer, not as anything else, just as an admirer. And then I had started really, thinking about my voice. I started a plus size kind of fashion blog back in about 2 years ago, because I wanted to start creating some sort of a brand presence. But I guess in my mind, I thought fashion was the only way I could do it. And so I was like, let me just start posting really cute outfits, and then like also get followers. That was like kind of my first thought. And then once I have a good following, I can start posting stuff that's more me. And fashion is me. Like, that is a piece of me. Yes. But it's not primarily, who I am. There was also this aspect of motivational speaking and inspiration and thought leadership that I wanted to bring. So I had kind of, I had done a little bit of video content, but it was really time intensive. And I love podcasts. And so I was like, I should just do it. Like, I should just do it. So I had put on my Instagram stories, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. And I think it was like a poll of like, or like, like, hey, would you listen, kind of a thing. And you reached out to me immediately, and I was shooketh. Like, that is the only way I could say it. I was like, really? Like, did you mean to, like, are you messaging the right person? Like, are you sure? And I think what was so cool was I've had some blog influencer, personality, really good friends that I've made. But a lot of what I see in the quote unquote influencer industry is a lot of not wanting to give back and feeling like there's only space for me. I can be the only one, kind of a thing. Right. And the fact that you reached out and were just like, hey, I want to help you. How can I help you? I was like, okay. Like, I was just shocked. So I just couldn't believe it. I was just so shocked. And so Denise and I set up time to meet together. And in that meeting, I think we had set aside like 30 minutes and we talked for like an hour and a half.
And I didn't want to get off. I remember like, who is this girl? Like, bring me a drink and get me dinner. I'm going to keep talking to her.
No, and I felt the same way. And, one of the things I always tell people is like, growing up, I grew up low income with a single mom, and my mom did the best that she could. But I think her goal for me was like financial stability. That was the goal. It wasn't like, I want to be this. It was more like, I want to be stable. And like, that was kind of all I could strive for.
Yes.
And so there weren't a lot of like these Latinas I saw that were making their way through the world and in a different way and spreading this and this message of belief and perseverance and grit and resilience. And so I was like, I want to be that for other people. I want other people to look at me and say, because she's doing it, I can do it too. Because I didn't always have that. And then I met you and I was like, oh, I want to be Denise when I grow up. Like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm 31, but like, we're going to start doing this now. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are. And what's so powerful, and I talk about this in the podcast episode, so I really encourage anyone who's thinking about joining EDA to listen, is I struggle with a lot of, Denise has called me before like a recovering perfectionist, right? Like, I think when you grow up as a Latino and you feel like you have to work 10 times harder to get to the same place that everyone else is, or you have to stand out, just to get that little bit of recognition, you can become really caught up in the details and I need to be overqualified to even get my foot in the door. And I want to change that. And I want to change that mindset for Latinos, because I think that there's not enough people saying that. And so that degree that, well, I don't really know a lot about podcast episoding, or I don't have music, or I don't know all these things. Denise was like, just go, just start going, just do it. Like, you have shit to say, people want to hear it. And so, excuse my language, you have stuff to say, people want to hear it.
Totally fine.
So get going. And now I believe I just recorded an episode before this. And we're up to 10 episodes now. And it's amazing. Now I'm starting to have people reach out to me and ask me if they can be on the podcast. And so my big dream, has changed. I think when I started EDA, my big dream was to launch my podcast. I did it, and we're here. And now my hope is, to get into more speaking engagements. I'm starting an outline for a book about confidence building and finding your voice. So we're just in the outline phase.
Okay. Things go quickly with you.
My hope is that, I don't know if you're familiar with like the 5 dynamics testing that people do, like it's like in corporations to tell you like where you get your energy. Well, my highest energy is in what's called execute. And literally the line says, you want things done the right way, but you want them done yesterday.
That's hilarious. That is so, and I am the same personality type. And I happen to think that's it's like, we're the ones that get stuff done. So. And
I think I always thought about getting stuff done as like a task-based skill. And it's not. I think it's also a belief-based skill. Like I can, like, not only can I get it done, but I can do it and I can accomplish it.
Yes. And like, there's a lot of confidence that comes like with what you just said. There's a lot of belief in self, belief in others to team up with you, belief that it's possible. And sometimes like that can like take over, like in the very best of ways. You can wash any team, any group of people that are trying to accomplish something big together, you can wash over them with this belief, and it like infuses them with the confidence. And then it's like, how did we do this? Oh my gosh, this is so crazy. But that's how you did it, because one person said, no, it can be done. Like takes that type of thinker and also visionary, in my opinion. So that is amazing. And of course I'm already thinking like, okay, I want to talk to you about what kind of deadline we're going to set on getting the book done. So
I should have said that out loud. No, I'm done, because you have to speak it. Like that's one of the things that's like the magic of EDA is like, you have an idea, the group of people, the group of women that are in this is like, if I were to go into the EDA group right now and say, I want to write a book, I would be inundated with comments of like, what about this girl? And what about this? This is the place where community over competition lives, is in EDA.
Yes, I have to agree. It is a beautiful space, one that brings me to tears often, because I feel so fortunate that you all have assembled and chosen each other to support. You know, it's kind of by default, but everyone is actively choosing each other to support. And it's so rare, you know, and
I agree.
Very special. So I want to go back to something that you said. And when I go like this, and when I was looking at my phone, I was actually looking to see if I could find this live so I could watch for any comments. So if you are watching this live, can you just like this so I can find it on my phone? Because I want to, can you send a message? Just say, hey, Denise, or say hi on a comment. And then I'll get a notification on my Facebook so that I can see the conversation over here. So if anyone comments, I can see them. And then I'm always taking notes. I'm a hyper note taker. That's how I process information. So I wanted to go back to what you said about this thinking that you did when you first got started, which was like first this, and then that. I'll call it first this, then that thinking. And it's like, this all has to be set up. And the thing is, it makes sense. We live in a world of, and it's funny, recipes, I'll use that because that's the name of your podcast. It does seem many things do need to happen in sequence for many things, right? And it's true. Yeah. And then they go in the oven and then you open it and take it out and then you eat it. Like, so sequence-based thinking is not like that's how we think. And that's not the best thinking to bring to your dreams. It's not the best thinking to bring. Oh, are you up on are you watching?
I was trying to pull it up on my phone so I could see if there were any comments, but I also need to mute my phone because now I have. There we go. I have.
So if you're watching live, please say hello to us because I'm not able to find the live in the group and it's driving me bananas. So anyway, so sequential based thinking doesn't work. It doesn't. And here's an example. Like Arlyne thought, when I will build based on this passion, which is fashion for her. And once I have X, and my guess is you probably didn't have a number. Did you have a number? Like once I have, no. And that is the interesting thing. And it's a trap to say once I build this up, quote unquote, and if you don't attach a number, then it will never feel like it's enough. And I am going into coaching and I can't even help myself. So like because I just want to give someone this gift. Like if you're in this perpetual feeling of never feeling like you're doing enough, like there's enough people following you, like there's not enough of whatever, right? If you have that enoughness, complaint, struggle, or challenge, right, in your life, oftentimes it's because of a few things, but one of them is a lack of a measurement. Like, so it's like, if you're going to say, well, I'm not enough because I didn't get 10 likes on this Instagram post. Well, then wait till how long are you going to give yourself for those 10 likes? And what did you do for the 10 likes? And did you exhaust to everything that you possibly could? And I'm going to guess that you didn't, right? And like, or I'm going to build this Instagram on fashion and so it's like, so that thinking, that sequential thinking, I don't even know if it's called that, but that's what the words that's coming to me right now. It makes it so that it sets you up so that you don't know when you can transition, you know? And so, it's like, okay, so at what point have you set it up so that now you can dive into that thing that you really want to do, right? And you love fashion. And like, here's what we talk about in EDA is when you pick that one single thing, right? Like Arlyne's biggest expression, I'm going to just say this, is not the podcast. Arlyne's business expresses herself through her podcast. She expresses her message through the podcast. Same message will be expressed through her speaking on stages. Same message through her book. And the message is, and this is what her podcast says, serving up a real, raw, and unfiltered conversation with badass people to help you do, have, and be anything you want. That is what she stands for. I mean, would you agree that that's true?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I just didn't know at the time.
And I didn't know my work was about belonging. Like, I just knew I need to make a movie, right? And then making the movie gave me a film. And then the film gave me a podcast. And then the podcast gave me, thousands of people to talk to. And then I realized my work is about belonging. And that's, at the most distilled version of it, right? And so that's the gift, is that there is no right way to come in. There's no best door. There's no recipe that is the best to use. The one avenue that is the best is listening to your heart. So when I spoke to Arlyne, I just felt like I want to help this girl. And here's another thing. The same way that I came into your life, Arlyne, incredible women came into my life. It was like, hi, I'm here and I want to help you. And I think in our community, and one woman was Latina and one woman is not Latina, but they're both my fairy madrinas. And like,
I love that. I was calling you that.
That's what people call me already. It is so funny. I need to write that down. I've never said it like in English and in Spanish, but anyway, so what I could how I knew I could help Arlyne, and all I've seen with her is her just blossom and grow. So tell us like what it's been like. I mean, because tell us what it was like leading up to being ready, what it was like to get the coaching, like, no, you need to be ready. And then the readiness kind of journey for you.
Yeah, I think, I think the first big motivator for me was that hearing that someone that I really respected wanted to hear from me, and that was you. And so I think it was, I think there's so many facets to building confidence that people don't realize. It's like body confidence, confidence in your skill set, confidence in your voice. And I think at that time I had built up some great outward confidence about my appearance, being plus size and, feeling like, clothes weren't made for me. And now like the plus size market is massive, right? And so I already felt like I had this kind of build level of confidence. But then I think it wasn't until I got into my first EDA meeting and there were all these other women who were doing some amazing stuff. And my initial instinct was, I'm not doing enough, until
Wow.
into the conversation. And it was just so much hype and love and support of all these women I thought were doing the most, and I was only doing a little bit, that also felt that same imposter syndrome and some of that self-doubt. And it was kind of in that first meeting that I was like, whoa, like I'm not the only person that struggles with this. Just because my dream isn't someone else's dream doesn't mean it's not the right dream. You know what I mean? We get so focused on what everyone else is doing. And what I realized kind of in that moment was like, I need to trust myself and know that what's driving this force that's driving inside me to share who I am and what I've learned and help other people find that greatness in them. I was like, no, I'm doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. But I think I had to work through some of the insecurities that I had about who I am, where I come from, what my qualifications were to do this. And instead it was just like all these women that were like, no, I had an idea and like, I want to do it and I'm gonna do it. And I think once I realized that like qualifications meant 0 to nothing on top of like self-confidence, self-love, trust, motivation, inspiration, my PhD in struggle, like once I realized like those were my qualifications, I authentically felt like me. And once I felt like I could just embrace me, I've worked on embracing myself my whole life. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling all of these amazing things. How do I give that back? How do I create more of these moments? And so I think that's when, like I said, when I started, it was just the podcast. That was the only thing I really wanted to do was launch this podcast. But then I felt like I kind of worked through it so quickly. It was like, whoa, like my dreams are big. I need to be dreaming bigger and stop having some of these self-limiting thoughts and feelings. And I'm still going to have them, and I still have them. And that's what kind of I also want to convey to everyone is this, like, it doesn't go away in a day. Like, it's constant work that you have to do to improve yourself and love yourself and believe in yourself. But the vehicle which helped me do that was EDA and the really the family that I've grown from there.
Oh, and so it's funny. Everybody calls it the family. Everybody calls it like the sisterhood, or it's like me having 50 cousins. It's like there is some very familial thing where it's like a relationship instant, like you do when you meet your cousins. You're like, oh my God, I like you so much. Of course, we share blood. I love you. You know,
Yeah.
it's that instantaneous thing. And so let's go back. I'm like writing all of these things. You're just dropping bombs all over the place. Um, so you said, and it's true. It isn't easy. And I always say it's not easy, but it's totally worth it. Now, it did happen quickly with you. And you said you are one of those people, Arlyne, that it's going to be hard believing you unless you go back, because you present so strong, so like polished and put together, and your accomplishments really speak like so much of you, like they just arrived before you do. And the fact that you came in with a podcast, just like, boom, you did it, right? So I agree, your dreams aren't big enough. And when you say, and I'm just like, wow, I am so glad and so excited to be on for this ride, because I don't know, all I know is we're going to be flying high, that we're going a lot of places in 2021. And I'm very excited to be in the front row seat for this one. So, when you said I struggle with stuff, like what would you say is the number one thing you struggled with, and how did you transcend it?
I think my number one struggle has always been self-doubt. And the reason for that in being that when you grow up when you grow up the other, the only, the first, I think you constantly are striving to stand out. And when I started working in the technology industry, I felt imposter syndrome like I had never felt it before, because I was around people that were from backgrounds, educational backgrounds that I had never been around before. And so you look around and you think to yourself, like, why am I here? Or like, what do I bring? And sometimes when you get into that mode of like, I work so hard because I want to stand out, people just start to expect that from you. And so you start to kind of question, like, am I doing the best? Am I doing the most? Like, am I doing what I need to? And so because I was around so many people that had written traditional accomplishments, accolades, degrees from, Harvard and Yale and all these places, I just was like, what do I have to bring? I felt very unpolished. I felt very, I went to a state school. Like, what does that mean? And, and I think I had to really work through, and I still struggle with the thought of credentials, really is what it is. The thought of credentials, the thought of big brands, the thought of all those things. But I think what I learned through EDA, through modules, through conversations with you, through conversations with, some of my sisters in EDA, is just that, like, no, the credentials that make you amazing are you. Mm-hmm. And like, I get a little bit emotional saying that, because I just feel like it took me a long time to realize that. And I knew it deep down, but I had to bring that out and realize that, like, I didn't need to look good on paper. And I spent too much of my life feeling like I did. And now I can use my voice, and especially in the world of COVID, I can use my voice to showcase that, no, maybe my experiences are not the traditional of some of the speakers you see on stages, but they are experiences that are relatable and that people aren't talking about. And that's what I really wanted to create.
Yeah. And you can't, you can't go to Harvard and get a degree in presence like the presence that you have. You can't buy it at Nordstrom. It is not for sale. You have it, either you have it or you don't. And you have that. It's called something. What is that word I'm thinking of? It's like gravitas. Yes, that's it. And it's just not something, it's just a gift. And so our job, right, and is to okay, believe the people that see it, because it's really hard to believe it, because we're like in our own bodies and having our own experience, right? So hard to believe it when people recognize that in us. And yes. Like, so our job is to just decide, I'm just going to believe it. because what's the alternative? Believe that I stink, believe that where I went to college. I think it's hilarious when people ask me where I went to college. I'm like, dude, that was FYI, that was 30 years ago. Like, hopefully you're not judging me on that. And like, it's like, judge me on what I've created now, not on where I went to school. But it's shocking on the East Coast how important that is, and how like falsely, how much false importance people feel like fake level silly importance that people personally feel, and then also that they are granted. To me, that is really means nothing, in my opinion. It's like, show me what you did with that. Show me what you did with what you had, and show me what you're doing in your community. Show me how you're making a difference and what you stand for. That to me is the biggest credential, and how you're transcending your past. That to me is worth all my respect, and honestly everybody else's too. So hopefully you're listening to Arlyne and you're seeing yourself, okay? And she has quite a story, and I can say with confidence that book is going to be a page turner. Knowing the very little I know about you, which I feel like we've talked, honestly, just not enough. But from what I know you have overcome quite a bit, and many people will be inspired and need to read your book. So I'm very excited to hear about that, and that you can start where you're at. That's another thing. Arlyne has a full-time job. She has a very demanding full-time job, and yet she's not putting this on the back burner. Now, how is it that you had the energy not to put it back on the back burner, other than the fact that I was like, that you were under my thumb? Like, what else contributed to just getting the podcast out there?
I think it was that I felt like there wasn't a lot like it. The whole premise for the podcast, right, is these real, raw and unfiltered conversations. And my hope is that, every guest that I bring on, of course, promote yourself. We are into that. We want your business to grow. But the other part of it is that I think it took me so long to realize that my struggles were what made me who I was and helped, instead of being embarrassed. And if I would have just embraced, sitting in a room full of Harvard grads and saying, well, I went to a state school, but I had to pay for it all by myself. I worked 2 jobs. I took naps in my car. I ate off the dollar menu. Like, all these things, you don't realize. And don't get me wrong, if you went to Harvard, amazing, yeah, and you don't have student loan debt, I'm here for you, amazing. But the thing is, I thought that getting a degree was what was going to open doors for me. I didn't realize that there was going to be like levels of imposter syndrome that I would experience. And so I wanted just to tell people that, like, this discomfort, this self-doubt, like these moments, they're real, and everyone has them. Even people that you think are the most accomplished, polished people all have them. And when I started to share more in my Instagram about anxiety, I'm somebody who's struggled with anxiety and panic disorder for a really long time. People were like, I'm so shocked. Like, I would never know. And it was those reactions that I was like, we need to be talking about more of this. And we're not. And that was why I felt so driven, because I felt like there were so many things I wanted to talk about that people weren't talking about in a real way. That I just kind of what I say about college, like, I just figured it out. I decided, okay, maybe Sundays are going to be when I record and edit, or Wednesday nights. And kind of one kind of like final thing I want to kind of bring away with is that I was kind to myself. I created a schedule, I created spreadsheets, all the things. But Denise knows, there is in November, I didn't put out any podcast episodes because I didn't have the mental capacity for it. My day job was too much. I had a lot of family stuff going on, and I couldn't. And instead of just being like, well, I give up, I'm never going to put out another episode, things are wild, I was just like, you know what? When I can get back and create the content I want to create, I will. Right now, I need to take a pause. And that giving yourself grace and that pause and that moment has helped me come back. And I recorded an episode this morning, put out a new episode last week, have some awesome people coming in. But just know, like, you can start and stop and keep going. And that is what I've learned so much is that I can't be hard on myself. I can motivate myself and let myself know, girl, you're not pushing it, you're not doing enough. But I also need to give myself grace and recognize that there are going to be times when I can't, until I can transition to do, speaking or writing full time. I have a mortgage, I have bills to pay, I got things I got to do. And I do really enjoy my day job. And so I think that's kind of the big thing is like, you don't have to do it all at once. And I felt I've always been an all or nothing person. And so that was, once I realized, no, this is my life, I can do this the way I need to do it, and it can be great, I think was how I kind of got there.
I have like a page full. Hang on. This is just so good. Just so many things that you said, so many sound bites. It's funny, making films, and I know we're going to wrap this up in a second. Making films, and this is just a total interesting sidebar. We look for people that speak like you because
I'm ready. I'm
ready for your close-up. Like you speak in these really powerful sound bites, and it's like clip, clip, power. Like I actually have a problem speaking the way that you speak because I just feel like I want to add so many freaking words, but you're like boom, and you just drop it, and it's a sign of yet another sign of what an incredible speaker you're going to be. So yes, this was a gush fest. Yes, I love Arlyne. Yes, I want you to love her too. She's in the EDA, the Eñye Dream Accelerator. And if you join us, you will meet her. You will be inspired by her and encouraged by her. And I think that wraps it up. So we're going to put the link to your podcast, to our episode. How else can people find you and follow you and support you?
Yeah, you can also find me I post a lot of quotes and fashion and fun stuff on Instagram at Queen Arlyne. That's a whole other conversation, but yes. Queen Arlyne, like once I realized my name rhymed with Queen, it was over. That was it. So Queen Arlyne on Instagram. On Twitter, I just kind of make fun comments about stuff, but you're welcome to follow me there. And then my podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places you can find podcasts. And you can learn more and see some of my older fashion blogs and such at arlynemarella.com.
Thank you so much, Arlyne. I love talking to you. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you soon. Mwah. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.